Hey guys, welcome back to TomGirl. Tonight we have VO legend Joe Cipriano. He has been the signature voice for some of the biggest networks, brands, and television shows in the world. You've heard the voice. Now you get to meet the man behind the mic. Stay tuned.
You're tuned in to AfterBuzz TV, the ESPN of TV talk. Now, let the buzz begin.
Hey everybody, welcome back to TomGirl. I'm your host, JJ Jurgens, where we talk all things sports, entertainment, fashion, and adventure. And today I have a very good friend of mine, Mr. Joe Cipriano. Welcome, Joe.
Well, it is awesome to be here, and great to see you, JJ.
You too. Thank you so much for taking the time to do this.
I love it. I love it.
All right, now you guys may not know, those of you who don't know Joe's face, you have definitely heard his voice everywhere for years and years and years. You have so many, you've been on the voice of so many networks, television shows, everywhere for so long.
Yeah, I mean, I started in radio, as a kid, 14 years old, and I became aware of voiceover at some point in my career. I had moved to Washington, D.C., and I heard, these voices promoting TV shows on networks, and I thought, that's a cool gig. I wonder if I could do that. But at the time, it was all these very big, deep voices, it was back in the 70s, The Love Boat, Ernie Anderson and Danny Dark. And but it put a bug in my head that I wanted to do something with that. And then, we could talk about whatever, but it ended up that I was the voice of the Fox network for about 15 years, CBS network, again, for about 15 years. And and I get to work on a bunch of different shows. It's kind of like a dream come true.
Yeah.
I love it.
Voice is fantastic, and I love listening to it. Let's kind of just take everybody along, I guess, the journey.
Let's go for a ride.
I do have an old photo of you up here, with your start out. So how did you even get started in radio at 14?
Yeah, that's so funny to look at that. My gosh.
I love it.
That's from the Washington, D.C. radio station. Oh, my gosh.
Bull is fantastic.
My wife actually married me, and I look like that, which is crazy. I was growing up in a small town in Connecticut. I lived in Oakville, Connecticut. And our local radio station was in Waterbury, Connecticut, top 40 AM radio, because back then in the 70s, nobody listened to FM. I mean, AM was the place to be. All the great personalities were there. All the top 40 music was played there. And I knew I wanted to get into show business in some way, maybe like you as a host, maybe as an actor. I just didn't know. But I came up with this notion that to get into it, maybe radio is a good start. I thought about all those old-time Jack Benny and, these people that started in radio and then went into movies and television. And so called my local DJ at this radio station and just happened to meet a nice guy. He's a great guy who allowed me to come down to the radio station, and I'd never even seen one before. And that started my love of radio. And even to this day, I mean, I've worked in radio my whole life since I was 14 years of age. Even after I started working with Fox as the voice of the network, I still stayed in radio because I didn't quite trust this voiceover gig, And so it took a while for me to transition out of radio. And I moved around the country, not too much. A lot of radio DJs will move all over the place, multiple cities, 2 different cities a year. I moved from Connecticut. I worked at a big radio station in Connecticut, WDRC, and then I got a job in Washington, D.C., where that picture was from. Oh, gosh. Oh, that's me today.
Studio now. Yeah.
That's me today, shaved and with a haircut.
Before and after.
Right, exactly.
Was it true that you were called, I read one article that said you were called rock and roller and that you knew all the top 40 catchphrases?
Oh, well, I guess
true?
So. I guess it's true. Yeah, I guess that's true.
Can you give us a couple? Do you remember any at this? I'm putting you on the spot.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I mean, well, number one, I have a face for radio, so that always comes up. But, it's all those sayings like top-down sound, transistor sister, all those silly, ridiculous sayings that used to have. When I was in Washington, D.C., I worked at a couple of radio stations, and I was doing afternoons at a rock station, which actually then transitioned into top 40, and I was the number 1 rock jock, in Washington, D.C. So, yeah, it was cool.
So then tell me about the transition to promo.
Yeah, I mean, I was on the air in Washington. then I was hired by NBC. That first picture that you showed was WKYS in Washington, which was an NBC-owned and operated station. And I had just turned 20. So, I mean, when I got down there, it was the youngest on-air personality that NBC had ever hired. And worked at NBC about 3-4 years. Format changed. Went over to the other station, the Rock station, which was an ABC-owned station. And while I was there, I started to get phone calls from ad agencies saying, hey, you know, we'd like you to do the voice for, it would be like a car dealership or kind of I did a few upscale department stores like Garfinkel's and Woodward and Lothrop. People in Washington, D.C. would know those brands. And that's when I became aware of voiceover. And it was like, I don't know much about this, but I kind of like it, you know. and then finding out that, wow, you can make money while you're sleeping, you know, by getting residuals off of doing this. And I was lucky because when I moved to Washington, I got immediately into the union, into AFTRA, American Federation of Television Radio Artists. So, and that's because it's a big city and it was owned by the network. You had to be in the union to be on the air. So when I transitioned into doing voiceovers, it was all union work. So it was all the bigger type stuff. And while I was there doing that, that's when I became aware of all these voices at the networks. And I said, that's what I want to do. And then I learned to do that, you have to go to Los Angeles. So then I made up my mind that I was going to get to Los Angeles somehow.
Now, one of your first big campaigns at the network was with Fox.
Yeah.
And I heard that the executive heard you doing radio. Is that true? And called
I
you?
had some, that was 1988. I had some limited success. I actually started off doing movie trailers. And in the early 80s, I did Fast Times at Ridgemont High and Porky's and Porky's 2 and Bachelor Party and a couple of Tom Cruise movies. And so I had some success there. I was doing Saturday morning cartoon promos over at ABC, but I was still, the day job was radio. And just like when I said I was going to move to LA, I was not going to come out here and be an out-of-work actor. I wanted to have a day job. I wanted to not be that person who's desperate to get a gig, you know, because when you go into a casting situation in front of casting people and you need that job so that you can make rent, you know, for the month, it's not a good way to go in, you know, and that desperation, they can almost smell it, you know, on you. So I never wanted to be that way. And I always, you know, advise people to try to have a day job, you know, when you can do that. And so I was still on the air in radio, doing some voiceover work. I'm very happy. Had an agent looking for more work. And I was filling in one day on KISS FM here in LA, afternoon drive. Wasn't even supposed to be on the radio that day. And this new network had just come on the air a few months earlier called Fox. And the head of promos and creative for the network, who had come over from NBC, was rolling over in his head. He's in his car driving home to Simi Valley during rush hour, so that's a long drive. And he's rolling over in his head how he's going to make this little network, Fox, be different from ABC, NBC, and CBS. You know, the graphics, the shows, you know, everything. And voice was one of them. And so he's in the car and listening to KISS FM. And I come on and I say 102.7 KISS FM, blah, 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 talk about the weather, you know, next song. And he actually said, that's an interesting voice. And so without knowing it, I was doing an audition to become the voice of the Fox network while I was on the air, and this guy was just driving home. So I was his companion in the car. And he literally, it was 1988, you know, cell phones then were those brick of a phones, and he picked it up and he found the number for KISS FM and called the main number. And I even remember the receptionist intercomming me and saying, hey, this guy wants you to do something like a promo for a network. And I thought, oh, you know, have him call my agent. I thought, wow, I might get, you know, to do a promo. That would be cool. And they brought me in, and over the time of 2 weeks, I became the comedy voice of the Fox network in '88, which lasted until about 2006, 2005, something like that.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
What a fantastic run.
It was unbelievable
Yeah.
luck. I mean, I always say that luck plays so much certainly into my career, but it's always about being prepared so that when that luck happens and that spark happens, it ignites something.
Yeah.
If that had happened and I wasn't quite ready for it yet, it probably would have gone by the wayside. But I was really, really lucky.
And also saying yes because you did have that radio job that you stuck to, and then that's how
Absolutely.
he heard you.
Yeah,
Like,
I know. Isn't that
yeah.
amazing? And I remember the network coming on the air and trying to get my demo to them and not having any luck. And here it came around a completely different way through radio. Yeah.
Well, and much better than just sending the demo like we were talking about. You don't know how much of that demo they actually listened to.
You never know.
But if he's stuck in the car for a commute home, that's a long time.
I had
to
him.
get
I
it
had
like
him for
you
50
did.
minutes or more. Yeah,
That's
yeah, exactly.
fantastic.
It was good.
Let's play a little bit of your promo demo for people out there so they can hear you.
The fate of the world is in their hands. Something happened to me. They just don't know it yet. The clue that will define their destiny. Next house.
Open to Ward 6.
House has never been more committed.
What do I call you? You can call me House.
Here's a brick house.
Next house. One sister's murdered, the other's missing.
No body?
And the number one suspect is someone she's dealt with before.
You almost got me convicted.
You sure as hell tried.
But this time, she gets one more shot.
You know what's interesting is that's my drama promo demo. And I'm known as a comedy voice. And I've done comedy, well, all the way back to Fast Times at Ridgemont High and at Fox and later at CBS. I don't know if you want to talk about it, but there was a change that came.
Yeah,
where,
I do, yeah.
I lost one of those gigs, and half of my income or more was gone. And Don Lafontaine is a well-known voiceover guy. He's the guy that came up with the line, "In a world," you know. He used to write movie trailers, and one day became the voice of movie trailers, and he's probably the most iconic trailer movie voice out there. And he's a good friend of mine. We worked together at Fox and at CBS. He was a drama voice, and I was a comedy voice. And I lost this comedy gig, and we were in New York City promoting a book, Secrets of Voiceover Success, that he and I had both written chapters in. And he called me up and he said, Joey, you gotta come over to my hotel. And I was like, I mean, that was a big hit, you know, right in the gut. And I went over to see him, and he said, listen, you're too good to not work. Don't take this, and go to a dark place. He said, the voice that you're using right now, this voice that I'm talking to you with, he said, that's a different voice than what you do for comedy, where I would be way up here, Sunday, it's an all new Simpsons, And he said, you should explore that voice and look into using all of your voices. And I had heard that NBC was looking for a drama voice. And so I went into my little studio. We have our studios. Went into my studio, and I made up a drama demo and sent it to my agent. I said, I'd like to go after that NBC gig. And she laughed at the time. She goes, you're a comedy voice. But then she listened to it, and she said, oh, it was kind of like that sound. They sent it into the network, into NBC. And a few weeks later, they got back to her and said, thanks for sending in the demos. We really like this guy, Joe. We want to start using him. So I became the drama voice of the NBC network that lasted for about 2.5 years. That kind of cycled through. And it was a whole new arena for me to be outside of comedy. I was still doing comedy at Fox, and I had a voice coach, recommend that when you go to Fox and you do your comedy stuff, stop at home and dress into all black before you go to NBC. So you'll have that visual trigger that now you're drama voice, now you're drama Joe, And it was a great experience. And then the funny thing that happened was that job that I lost at the other network as the comedy voice came back to me. And I continued on after like a 2.5 year break. I was the comedy voice of that network again for another 10 years, It was
and
crazy.
This is one thing I admire most about you because, I was at that network that did that to you.
Yeah.
And just to see you like take something that could be such a down, a devastating thing that happens and turn it around and discover, I'm not just going to let this beat me down. I'm going to go find this other voice when people think that I can't do that or that's not me or that's not my brand.
Yeah.
And to go after that, I think is fantastic.
Thanks. I talk about it a lot, and especially in this business, and you do voiceover as well. You're going to get a lot more no's than yeses. And so you hear that a lot, and you just can't let that get to you. It's kind of a cliche where you say, well, don't take it personally, but it's very hard not to take it personally when somebody is saying no to you over and over and over again. So you have to rise above that.
Well, and I think what sometimes you don't see as the voiceover artist either is the decision that made that. Like, it could just be literally one person,
Absolutely.
and 100 other people in the company love you or want you.
Yes.
That's I think what's opened my eyes being on the network side is that I see just that you can't take that stuff personally. You have to just find a way to let it go because there's no rhyme or reason sometimes.
It'll eat you. It'll eat you alive. Yeah, you have to keep going.
Yeah, but because you had a great attitude and everybody loved you, then you were back in 2 years.
I was very, very poor. I had some people who championed me, who, I've had that throughout my career where people who were there for me and helped me, and I try to pay that forward and be that kind of person for other folks that are coming up.
You do. You're one of the most,
Thanks.
So you do that the most. So far. Well, let's talk about your game shows. You do a lot of announcing for game shows. So you have big news with a new one that you used to do 10 years ago is back. Let's talk about that.
Isn't that crazy? Now, there's another thing that it's almost like, being on the radio and some guy who runs a network hears your voice again. Deal or No Deal with Howie Mandel. Huge show on NBC. Going back to when I was the drama voice of NBC, that's when it launched. And I think that was around 2005, actually. And they had me do a couple of the promos for it. So it actually went on the air in December of 2005 with a different announcer. They had a limited run. I think they were given 2 shows or something like that. And the ratings were through the roof. And when they started to retool and then they were going to do more shows, the executive producer, Scott St. John, had seen the promos and said, I want that guy to be our announcer. And it's another one of those stroke of luck type things. So I became the announcer for Deal or No Deal with an incredible run. I think it was on the air for, until 2008, went into syndication. I was the voice, the announcer for syndication. And then finally, NBC really ran it into the ground. They were running it 4 nights a week sometimes. It was crazy, and that happens often. So it just by normal attrition, it went away. And fast forward 10 years later, 2018, I get a call from the executive producer, same one, saying, guess what? We're getting the band back together. It's like, you gotta be kidding me. And
Merry Christmas.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's on CNBC, although they did do a holiday 10-year anniversary on NBC for the first premiere, which was a couple of weeks ago, and it actually got good numbers. So I'm wondering what's going to happen now if NBC is going to go, maybe we should have that back over here. You never know what's going to happen. But the way I work in this show, and actually in quite a few shows, it's called working in post. So my announcing is done after the shows are shot. So the shows are already shot. It was done from Universal Orlando Resort. And Howie's back. And Howie Mandel has always said that show changed his life. It changed his entire career and launched him into all different, it supported his stand-up comedy. He moved into doing America's Got Talent, which, by the way, same executive producer, and I do that as well, and have done that for a number of years. So it's back. Deal or No Deal's back, and I'm having a blast. It's so fun.
When you say you do them at your home studio, do you see cuts of the show, or you just get scripts? Yes.
And not necessarily at my home studio, although I do some that way. But mostly, like tomorrow, we're doing 2 shows. So I'm going to a studio in Toluca Lake. And what they do is everybody's back in New York City. All the post-production is being done back there. But they'll send quick times of the show, video of the show, load it up, and we read to it, and the producers are on the line, and they're directing, and we're doing it that way. So I do get to see it, much like how we do promos in network. I get to see the video. I reading along with it. They know if I'm fitting in those little holes, because everything is in promo. Your viewers might not know, it's in network. Everything is done first. The creative is done on the promo. They've decided how they're going to tell this story, and it's all cut. Music, sound effects, sound on tape, SOTs. And then we come in later with a script where we have our lines and then also the lines that are the sound on tape. And we weave in and out of that. And it's kind of like being back in radio. It's like talking up songs, where you talk up the intro of a song until the vocal hits. And it's that same kind of timing.
Talk about the importance of the timing and how you learn that cadence with promo.
It's so I actually have taught a little bit. I don't consider myself a coach, but I certainly can teach the technique of doing promos and what it is to do that. And I've done some master classes on that. And I go to conferences around the country. I've seen you at a couple, and I can get people up in front of the microphone, have promos with me, and have the video up on the screen, and give them that feeling. And I always say it's kind of like a freight train. We at the beginning of a promo, we have 3 beeps: beep, 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 and on the imaginary 4th beep, you go and you start reading off that script. The promo's going. It's a 30-second promo, and you have to keep up with it. And when you're getting behind. And once you get behind a little, you're going to get behind a lot. And so the timing is so very important for that. And I can demonstrate to people who haven't done it before, and I warn them, okay, you're going to feel like this promo is getting away from you. But you know what? As soon as you get into it, do it like 3 times, 4 times, you start to feel the timing and go, oh, okay, I get it. I have to go a little faster here, a little slower here. And I said, it's not until then, it's going to take a while, until you can master the timing, that then you can do the important stuff, which is, what are you going to do with the words? How are you going to make it stand out? What's going to be different? How are you going to interpret it? What can you do to make this special and to get people, viewers, to tune in to the show? It's a collective. It's the writer-producer, it's the network, it's the executives, it's the show itself, the voiceover, everything in that creative that gets people to come into the tent and watch the show.
What are some of the things that you've learned over the years of your career that are like little tips or things that maybe you wish you would have known when you started out, things you've discovered about VO?
Yeah, one of them is not to take everything so seriously. I mean, it can feel like it's life or death, and you're talking about your career, and maybe something happens like we talked about where you lose something. I think you just have to keep a positive attitude, and I think that's really extremely important. And so maybe I didn't know that at the beginning, but I certainly learned that, and it's more of the way I am just in my day-to-day life, with my family, my kids, I think having a positive attitude. And, it's also about never giving up. And that's something that I think I had it in me in radio, but I realized that the people who succeed in whatever their chosen field is the ones who never give up. They're the last people standing. And if you just keep at it, and again, we go back to all those no's, if you just keep going and you keep learning from your mistakes and your successes, you can't truly appreciate those great highs without having those awful lows, then you can really understand it. So my career, I call it a roller coaster. It's like this constantly. And it'll always be like that. You're never done. You're always, continuing to learn and move forward.
I know that you do a lot of your own marketing and looking for work. What are some business skills on the VO side that have served you well? Yeah,
I think, in being a union actor, or whatever, voice talent, we have agents, that are franchised, and they have established relationships with buyers, producers, shows, networks, and all of that. So, you have that opportunity for that to come to you. But an agent isn't out there all the time trying to get you work. You still have to get the work. And you'll get these opportunities coming in, which I call getting up to bat. You got to get up to bat. You got to swing as many times as you can. And you're going to strike out, you're going to foul out, and then you're going to hit a home run. Then you're going to strike out, you're going to single, and then you're going to hit a home run. And you just have to keep getting up to bat, to do it. And so, it's you can't rely just on the agents doing it. So things that I do, I read all the trades. I have a couple of them that, like Daily Variety, but there's some others like Synopsis that I get in my email every morning. And there's a lot about what's going on in the business and what's happening, but what I go to right now is in development or shows that are coming up, and I look in there to see what's happening. For example, that's how I got the game show Hollywood Game Night. I had seen it, that it was greenlit, and that it was going to be going to NBC, and it had the exec producer in there, and I emailed my agent and said, this show, they're going to need an announcer. Let's go in and go after it. So I think on the business side, you have to be proactive. You have to find ways to help your agent, find gigs. LinkedIn is another great opportunity to meet people, or at least find out who is the head of creative for a certain network, and then try to do an introduction or have your agent help you with an introduction, that kind of stuff.
Great tips. Great tips.
It's a business.
Yeah. Speaking of Hollywood Game Night,
yes.
So that's on tonight.
Jane Lynch.
Yep, with Jane Lynch.
And that's, I believe it's been on, it seems like it's 6 seasons, I think. Which is hard to believe.
That is hard to believe.
Yeah, it's kind of one of those shows where they'll do 13 episodes and then it's kind of gone for a while. But it always performs well for NBC, and Jane Lynch is brilliant, and it's a real neat format, for a game show. And again, I do that post, and I'm doing that on Thursday. I have 2 shows, 5 shows that we're doing on Thursday, because we have a new 13 episode run. So I'll do those over the next, week or 2 or something like that. But fun show, love doing it. It's the only show I've ever experienced where they have a live bartender in the studio, and they encourage everybody to drink.
I bet that gets the audience really engaged.
Oh yeah, and the people on the show gets them really engaged. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's good.
Let's give everybody a little sample of the game show.
Thanks.
The Gameshow Demo when we can hear, just so they can hear.
Yeah.
Hear some more, and then they can all go watch you on that tonight as well.
Tonight, it's the biggest deal or no deal ever.
If there is anybody to win this money, I pray that it's you.
The banker is ending the $1 million mission with a record-breaking $13 million cases. It all starts right here, right now. Welcome to Hollywood Game Night, where each week Jane Lynch invites 6 celebrity friends over to play games.
That's really hard.
Have some drinks.
Bobby, go to the bar, man.
It's Hollywood Game Night.
It does seem like such a fun show you'd want to be on. When I watched it.
Yeah, it's good, and it's a genre that I got into because what we were talking about, where I never thought. I was working at Fox and working at CBS, and I thought, oh, wow, this promo thing is great. And then when you lose something and it's like, oh, okay, I'm going to learn to diversify, So I started looking at a lot of different genres. Live announcing, done the Emmys and the Grammys and a bunch of live event shows. Then I looked at game shows. And while I was at CBS, I became the announcer for a show called Pictionary with the late Alan Thicke, which was actually done live there at CBS TV City. So I was live there for that. We would shoot 2 weeks worth of shows on a weekend. So we would do 5 shows on Saturday, 5 shows on Sunday. Yeah.
That's
Plus,
a schedule.
I was the warm-up guy as well. So I was out there all day long. I would do Saturday, and we'd started. I get there at 9 o'clock, and we'd be done at 7 or something like that. We'd have 2 audiences that would come in. We'd have one audience for the first 3 shows, a new audience for the second. I remember one night going out to dinner with my wife Ann and friends, and I was like literally, my face in the soup bowl. It was grueling, but it was fun. And so it was all about diversifying. I do a lot of radio imaging. I'll do game shows, live announcing, anything that I feel will kind of spread it out a little bit, so that if you do lose something, it doesn't hurt as much. I learned that lesson.
Yeah. And then also, how do you keep track of like the trends or where things are changing or moving forward?
Everything, promos has changed so much in a number of different ways. Like where, as I said, I would be the comedy voice, and Don Lafontaine would be the drama voice, or whoever it would be. And that was the norm. The norm now is different voices for different shows. And, networks are on all different platforms as well. I think it's kind of silly that a promo still says tonight at 8/7 Central. I mean, give me a break. Who the heck is watching a show at 8/7 Central? I mean, we're DVRing it, or we're going to watch it on demand or whatever. And I always think that, I wonder when the creative is going to change on that, but it's still there and it's still happening. But so that's part of what changed. It created more opportunity for voiceover people. It was a long time for women to come into promo, and it was excruciatingly long period of time. It was not keeping up with pop culture and what was happening just out there, in the zeitgeist. And so finally, that's happening. It's not happening as quickly as it should be. But
No, it's not.
No, it's not. Okay. Well, those opportunities now are opened up where a network, instead of just having 2 or 3 voices, now could have 10 or more. So that opens up that opportunity. But at the same time, it used to be you had to be in Los Angeles to do this, and there were a finite number of men and women who were doing that. Now we can do promos from anywhere, or do voiceover from anywhere in the world. So a lot of these voices that are network promo voices, for example, and also commercial voices and on and on and on, they're coming in either via the internet, with different apps, so that they can connect at full fidelity, like we're hearing here, anywhere in the world. And so now there are not just talent in Los Angeles, there's talent all over the country that now could be the voice of a network TV show. So that's changed. And then finally, it's the job itself and matching what's current in pop culture, and it's always changing. The announcer is out, the real sound is in, younger is better, and it's a matter of, if you're going to stay relevant, and that's pretty much my biggest job, for the past several years, and will continue to be, is how do I stay relevant, in what's happening? And sure, it's this now, but I tell you, it's going to change again, and you just have to keep up with it. Reading the trades, listening, watching TV networks, understanding why people are being booked to do things, and then trying to, I still work with coaches, to change my read, come up with something different. You just can't rely on what you did 2 years ago.
Yeah, the word is definitely out that VO is the best job in the world.
Yeah.
And one woman who helped this was Lake Bell when she did her movie, In a World, which you were in. I want to talk about this a little bit.
Yeah.
Because I love this movie. And
I just read today that Lake got a green light for a network comedy.
Oh, fantastic.
That she's creating and she's going to star in. It's a fish out of water type thing. I think it's young couple, and they moved to Montana or something like that. So they still have that big city kind of thing, but they're in a small town. Lake Bell is absolutely brilliant. So lucky to meet her. She went to drama school in London, and she took voiceover classes and loved voiceover. I mean, she's an amazing actress, but she really loved voiceover. And she told me this. She when she graduated, she had a demo from college, a voiceover demo. And she said, I was going to move to L.A. and be the next great voiceover artist. And instead, I moved to L.A. and I was the next great waitress in the Valley, And she's always had a love of voiceover, and her career took over on camera. and she's a great writer and director. So she used her love of voiceover to write this movie in a world which is about who we've been talking about, Don Lafontaine, who came up with that word in a world, that phrase. And the premise of the movie, it's a comedy. It has nothing to do with reality, except that Don Lafontaine kind of inspired it. She wrote this movie where Don Lafontaine passes away, as he did in 2008, and who is going to take over the mantle of being able to say that phrase in a world. And it's extremely funny. Rob Corddry's in it. I mean, the cast just goes on. Fred Melamed, who plays her father. I had a very small part in it, but I was in a couple of different scenes, and she's always so sweet to talk about me. We'd go to the screenings, my wife and I. She would introduce me to the audience, and there we are with Lake. That's at Sundance, by the way, where she won the Screenwriter Award, which was unbelievable. The movie hadn't even come out yet wide, and she won that award, and that was the celebration afterwards. And it was well received at Sundance, and at Sundance it got a distributor and it went wide, which was great. But when I first went in for the audition, she wanted to have a couple of real voiceover people in it. And so going to the audition for this movie, there was like every voiceover person in town. It was like, hey, how you doing, Mark? What are you doing here? Oh, the voice of NBC, and all these different people. And we all waited to go in to read with Lake, and she read with all of us individually. So I had in my mind how I was going to introduce myself to her. When I was at NBC, there was a show called Surface, which was a sci-fi show that she starred in. And I was hired, besides doing the promos for it, I was hired to do the in-show, one of those things like previously on Surface, and you talk about what happened. And so I did that, for the run of the show. And so when I went in, she says, Joe, nice to meet you, blah, blah, blah. And I said, yeah, it's great to finally meet you. You and I worked together for, about a year. And she goes, we did? I said, yeah, we worked on the same show. Really? Yeah, on Surface. I don't remember. And I leaned in and I said, previously on Surface. And she goes, oh my God, you're that guy.
Perfect.
And I got the gig.
Yeah, that was a great intro. Yeah.
Got the gig. Yeah. She was wonderful. Yeah.
I love stories like that too, where you didn't know that would come back around and you guys connected on this.
Yeah.
Great voiceover movie for those of you out there.
Oh, it's so fun. You're right. You're right. And in the nobody watches DVDs anymore, but when she does her director's commentary, she's so sweet talking about me and Mark Elliott, who used to be the voice of CBS years before me. And we actually shot the B Team. We shot in my studio that you were talking about, in my home, and we did a couple of scenes in there. And she talks about it when it comes up in the movie. Joe Cipriano. He's got this sexy studio. She does this whole thing. She's very sweet.
I'll have to snag the old DVD and watch. I didn't see those clips.
Yeah.
Well, I know we're just about out of time, but I do want to talk about two more things. A little bit of, we talked earlier about how you do give back a lot, and you're active with the SAG Foundation, and you actually got the award for the Don LaFontaine Legacy Award.
I did.
There.
Yeah, I did.
Which speaks to your professionalism, your giving back, and what you do to help grow the voiceover community.
Thanks.
How important it is for you to pass that along and interact with that.
Well, listen, I was on the receiving end of that for a number of years, and I guess that's it's interesting. The voiceover community, and you know this as well, it's an extremely giving sort of community, and I've been told among actors who have come in from on camera that it's not like that. I have one friend who came in from New York who was in a world, who moved to Los Angeles, and he's an on-camera actor and also a voiceover actor. And when I introduced him to the voiceover community and he saw how supportive it was, he said, it's not like that in the on-camera world. I mean, it's really like, So, it's easy to give back, and I think it's incredibly important. And I'm one of the co-founders of the Don LaFontaine Voiceover Lab at Screen Actors Guild Foundation, which are state-of-the-art studios that are available to SAG-AFTRA members absolutely free. And something that Paul Pape and I were co-creators along with George Whittam, who designed the studios. One thing that I was adamant about, and Paul was as well, is that it couldn't be exclusive. It had to be inclusive. So it wasn't just going to be for SAG-AFTRA members. We wanted to get everybody in there, non-union people in there as well. They have to pay a small fee to do it. But you know what I've always said, and we would get a lot of pushback from that from a number of different folks. And I always said, listen, this is the beacon. This is what talent that are coming up in voiceover now, and they're non-union, they can come in here and go, oh, wow. So this is kind of like one of the benefits of being in the union. I mean, you have to look at it that way and stop closing the door and keep the door open. And believe me, it'll come back to you. You know. So it's been really successful, and it's incredibly busy there. SAG Foundation opened up another one in New York City that we helped get launched, and so we're really proud of it. You know that it's there. Yeah,
That's wonderful.
Yeah, thanks.
Well, just about wrapping up here. Each week we do.
I
could
talk
talk to Joe
I
forever.
talk too much.
This could be a 2-hour session tonight. I love it. Each week here we have a tradition of picking the Tom Girl of the Week. So this is going to be our last one of 2018.
Wow.
So our Tom Girl of the Week is Kathie Lee Gifford. She announced that she was leaving the Today Show today, and I have just always loved her. I watch that show every morning. I love them, and there she is. You know, she has her own wine brand, and just such a fun, like Joe, like giving spirit, and just feel like she just has such a big heart and has been somebody that I have always looked up to in this.
That's really
in
nice,
broadcasting
JJ. I'm surprised that announcement came out today.
I was too. I
Yeah.
didn't see that one coming yet.
What a great
so.
selection. Good, good for you.
Yeah, so
good on you.
And what I love too is she's done all this so much in her career already, but she's not stopping. She's leaving so that she can go pursue more of her music and theater and movies and all. So she's just never done. I just love her so much.
That's cool. That's cool.
All right. So back to Joe. All right. So to wrap up here, what are any things coming up for you? Things people where they can listen to you?
Well, you know, the shows that are going on right now, I still work in promo at a number of different networks, more cable networks now. You know, you're always trying to stay relevant and finding what to do. My wife and I wrote a book called Living on Air, Adventures in Broadcasting.
You have a photo of that one to show. So people, it's available on Amazon? Or
you can get it just about anywhere. Amazon. We also have the digital version, you know, for Kindle and all readers, which is kind of fun because it has live links that you can go and hear and see some of the stories that I'm talking about in video and audio. And then there's also the audiobook, which somehow I got to narrate. I don't know how that happened. I was the cheapest one available. And the way we did that is I really wanted it to be more of a kind of like a radio play. So there's a lot of original music in it by Greg Chun, who composed a lot of music for it. AJ McKay was my sound design, and he did such an amazing job. So when you listen to the audiobook, you're kind of immersed in it. And a lot of the stories that I talk about, from being an Italian kid growing up in Connecticut and my large Italian family and moving into broadcasting, and all of those stories really kind of come to life with the audio in that book.
All right, I can't wait that's going to be my holiday reading and listening. Well, Joe, thank you so very much for coming. I love you so much. And
love you too. Thank you.
The best. So I appreciate you taking the time today.
Thanks very much.
All right, and happy holidays, everybody. This is it for 2018. I can't wait to see you again in 2019. We're going to have some new updates, do some new things, but we'll still be doing online content socially now through the end of the year. We just won't be in studio, so we'll stay in touch. Thanks so much for watching. I appreciate you guys so much, and it's been a great year. I'll see you in 2019. Bye.
Our founder, Keven Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and me, Maria Menounos, would like to thank you for tuning in to AfterBuzz TV. Remember, we're not just the first, we're the biggest in the world, and we're the only destination for all your favorite TV shows. Whatever you crave, we've got it. So go to AfterBuzzTV.com and check out our lineup. Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.